Everything B9.
Hello, Blue Noses. Welcome back to the EverythingB9 podcast, part of the Everything BCFC network. I'm James Kelly, and since we last spoke, the Blues have taken on Swansea City, Coventry City, Sheffield Wednesday, and the so-called Hollywood rivals, Wrexham. So we've got loads of results, reaction, and a lot to dissect. So let's get stuck in. Once again, returning for some more conversation about the Blues, it's Josh Clark. Hello, Josh.
Hi, how's it going?
All good, all good. Ready to dissect into the last 4 games of action?
Yeah, try and put a bit more of a positive spin on the doom and gloom that seems all over Twitter at the moment.
We'll get right into that. And we have always said on the podcast as well, we absolutely want to speak to more Blues fans and some brand new faces to come onto the pod. That's exactly what we've got tonight. George Hemphill, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, man, good. Ready to go. It's been a long time coming. Obviously been in the group chat for a little while.
It's finally left the group chat.
It's finally left. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
The equivalent of that lad's holiday that finally leaves the group chat. There you go. Welcome to the pod. George, before we start, do you want to give us a bit more background of yourself as a Blues fan and give the audience a bit more of a conversation about yourself, how you kind of maybe got into supporting the Blues, so you were season ticket holder, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, so started as early as when I was 3. My dad took me to my first game. I can't remember what it was. It was a long time ago. I'm 21 now, although I look about 12. In my last year of university, I've been a season ticket holder since I was 10. And yeah, loved and loathed at the same time, every single minute of it. So yeah.
Welcome to the ride.
Thank you. Yeah, let's go.
As they say. And let's get straight into it then. Swansea City at home was the first one. After our recent results, really, against Stoke City and Leicester. Swansea, we did actually predict that it could be a few goals. It was nothing but that, but we did get a goal. And of course, it was that man once again, who I think actually, a lot on the podcast we've said, and also on Twitter, like you said, Josh, Blues fans have slated Lyndon Dykes. He was almost off on a transfer move in January. We've kept him, and he's come up with a good today last gasp winner against the Swans.
Yeah, you've got to give him credit for that. I think he does really well, but I think because of Wagner's comments, we all expected an improvement on him, but at the end of that, he still does the job when we need him. So he's got a place in the squad, and I think it's a squad game. When you start him, you lose a little bit from what we want. What you want from Lyndon is 75 minutes onwards, and he's perfect. He kind of replaces Duke, but offers a bit more and can actually do a little bit more interplay than Duke ever could. So I think he's a really good asset, but he shouldn't be the sole direction of the way we attack.
Yeah, no,
He's scored some very important goals for us. He has. Wow. Sorry, James. I didn't mean
go for it.
He's scored some really important goals. Obviously, you had the Bradford goal in the semi-final, and then this season he's won us 6 points on his own, really. The Blackburn winner and then the Swansea goal. I think he's best suited to the 6-yard box, but my problem with him is as much as he's useful in the 6-yard box, that is about as much as he offers, which isn't really a problem because, like you said, it's proved to be quite effective this season because he's won us those 2 games. But I just feel like we could do with a striker that, while has that advantage and can, score those goals, offers us a little bit more and can play a little bit, I think.
I agree. And I think Marvin Dutch is almost there. He just needs to be given the game time. And obviously, I think he had a little knock, didn't he? So he was basically absent for a few games. So we still haven't really seen the potential of him. We still need these signings to kind of integrate into this squad. And none has been kind of more successful, really. And it was always going to be that way. I mean, he was excellent at Sunderland in Patrick Roberts. I mean, that delivery for the ball for Dykes was just unbelievable.
It's what you want. That's the type of player that he is. And I think seeing the Roker reporting on him still shows that he's kind of got that link still to them because he was such an effective player for them last season. So I think as long as he's on the pitch, I think we've got a chance of having something to get bums off seats, and that's what Blues fans all enjoy.
And I have to say as well, first half, it was very much similar to Blues that we've seen of League One for a lot of games, where the first half where we kind of go out for the punch, but don't really go for the knockout and don't really get that goal or create anything. Second half, then it not got worse per se, but Swansea put on more pressure, didn't they? But our defensive discipline was there. Swansea didn't really do much, and it was a game of possession once again of side-to-side football, George, where we've seen under Davis, and there's a lot of question marks under the possession style of play across the board of the 92 at the moment in terms of, is it outdated? Are teams able to get away with it because they can't create the chances? What did you make of that against Swansea? Was it just like, were you confident that we were going to be to basically show that defensive discipline, or do you think, God, we really need to create a chance because this could end up in the back of the net for the Swans?
That was what I was most pleased with, I think, coming out of the Swansea game, was how disciplined we actually were at the back, because not in League One like necessarily, but there were so many games in the Championship before where we deserved to win and we just fell asleep just for 30 seconds, and then we'd concede a goal and then we lose, and then it'd be a tight game that we'd lost. But that was what was pleasing to me against Swansea, was that we were really resilient at the back. And it proved at the end, really, because we did need to defend a little bit, which has been a bit of a shock to the system, I think, this season. Because obviously last season we didn't have to do much of that because we were just cruising through teams. But this season, I think, like especially against Swansea at home, I think other games have been quite poor at the back. But I think Swansea at home, I thought we were really resilient and did really well. And that was in our favour, really, because then we were able to go and get the winner for ourselves.
Josh, then obviously we got the winner, as we've said earlier on. Was this a momentum shifting moment then potentially for the Blues? I know we will talk about Coventry, don't get me wrong, but talk about that reaction after that game. Was this one after a bit of, not a torrid run, but an underwhelming run, shall we say, is probably the word. But do you think, right, we've got that goal, we've got the winner, we've got the 3 points. Is this now the momentum shift?
I think so. Maybe a bit of like just a job well done and on to the next. The difference is when you're playing at home, we are a different beast, and we do make it awkward for other teams. And by having possession-based football, you are going to dominate the ball if you're good at that. Give Davis his credit. The whole team is his pure identity. It's everything that he's ever wanted, and it's a work in progress. If the base level is that you don't get the ball off us, you don't really hurt us, or we don't score, well then you draw every game, don't you? As a base level, every team should try and achieve that, because you won't go down with that. With everything else on top, that's really become better. So with the likes of wanting a better DYKES, well, DYKES then becomes your 15-minute man. We've got to find someone for 60 minutes. Before, we didn't have to do that. We found someone for 90 minutes in the whole starting 11, and anybody else who come in was just adding on top. And we should have scored more goals that season, but that would have been at Davis. 3 years' time would have found ways to make us score even more goals, to get more goals on top of 111 points, because even though Davis is a very inexperienced manager, he's 20 years in the game to get to this point. And this is where I think people lose the idea. Just because we're the first proper job, to get to this point is hours upon hours on the grass with these players, learning from players that are much bigger than the players he's working with now. So don't be overawed that this is all new to him. He knows the best way to get goals out of this system. The difference is the players that he's using just don't know that yet. And it's all a work in progress, all tweaks here and there. If you take the Swansea game, for good 40% of that second half, Swansea couldn't get out of their own half. We just dominated them. And a brilliant seat, because I was in the boxes at times. I was sitting right in the middle. Craig Gardner's 3 rows down and to the left of me. So we're literally watching at the same angle. And we're just pass, move. It was very side to side. But I remember Steve Bruce's side to side, which was facing at the old railway end, which is behind the goal. And it's negative. The Blues are facing side to side, but they're trying to find the passes. But it's not having that maverick or that slight turn that does it. Davis is telling them to do it or giving them the options. It's about them finding it. But when you've got Patrick Roberts who can do the things he can do, and Damari that can do the things he can do, when they're on sync and it clicks once, brilliant, you probably get a goal. When it clicks more times than not, what Lampard's doing at Coventry will happen at Blues. It's just a matter of time of putting the right pegs in the right holes. Throwing the whole system out of the window is the last thing you want to be doing. And I think the Swans game proved it, because the first half they were rocked. They deserved to be 1-0 down. It wasn't offside, really. I think in the Prem they probably would have got that, and it would have been a completely different game. But the second half, with the Davies chat and the way he pushed them, it was a marked improvement. But I think finding how you do that away from home is Davies' biggest challenge. If he gets that, I think we could be in for a really exciting development in the squad and in the style of play.
We'll talk about, you mentioned him earlier, but we'll talk about Damari Gray because obviously he comes on to be a crucial asset in the future games that we're talking about. You did mention it, Frank Lampard and Coventry. That was our next opposition. We have to go already to the way. And historically, the what I would call is the Rico, whatever it's called nowadays, is a very, because there's so much sponsorships these days. Coventry University Stadium, some other lines of that. Coventry Builder Society, whatever it is. It's historically a hard place to go to for Blues historically. But again, this new opportunity for Davis to go there and cement his style of play. And we were talking about it really on the podcast of League One. We are going to come against top tier opposition. Is Coventry top tier opposition? I'll open that to debate. But what they are there is they have been up there with playoff contention. So they would be considered up there. However, I don't know if any Blues fan expected to get a 3-0 defeat at Coventry. It was a heavy defeat. We're not going to gloss over it too much because there's not much to say about. But we were exposed tactically and had the most amount of defensive vulnerabilities, you'd have to say. And Coventry were dangerous, let's be honest. And it probably shows what happened since their league form. As of recording tonight, they're top of the table. So do we give almost a little bit of doubt on that? Or do we think actually it was just one game where Coventry was just clearly better than us, George?
I think the one thing that upset me about Cov was I think the way that Davis wants to play and this high pressing style of football, I didn't see any of that against Cov. It was almost like we'd set up to try not to lose. Like from minute one, we had a throw in, we were taking them long, we were slow, we didn't press as much, and it took us 16 minutes to concede the first goal. And then after that, I don't think we maybe played, our normal way for one little passage of play and we almost created a chance. Like the ball, I think it was Tomoki knocked it into Stano when he had a shot that got blocked and went out for a corner. But I think that was what was upsetting about Cov was we set up trying not to lose from minute one. I don't know whether it was the injury in the warm up to DYKES or whether that shifted the whole sort of style of play. I'm not too sure, but I don't think it would have made that much of an impact, and it shouldn't have done really. Then the red card as well, which I don't understand why Jack Robinson's been left on his own in the centre circle on a booking against Hadji Wright, who's very, very quick. That opens up to a whole other level of problems that he really shouldn't have been in that situation. And that was what was upsetting Cobb. It was a bit of a we thought we were turning a corner, I think, at Swansea. And Cov was almost like it was a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you think as well, Josh, the red card so early on as well, almost in the first half, 40 minutes on the clock, and you're down to 10 men, you're already kind of fighting a losing, an uphill battle, shall we say.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with that game is DYKES probably got the start because of lack of height. Carver got a bit more height, scoring the goal as well, rewarding the good, return. That then kills the press. When you haven't got Jai and Kyogo, the way we press is then diminished because DYKES is just not going to do that. It's like watching Duke in a different guise. He's never going to break someone down. If you drop him a little bit deeper and you allow him to play in the half space, then, that is the woke term, but it is that half space between where the midfield and the defensive. You are going to get that little extra bit of movement from him. So I think Davis is stuck in the ways of this system. This system only gets better when some of his parts improve. If you have more energy in the midfield, which we have now clearly lacked, Haig and Iowata are never going to run people through the ground. They're never going to cover the ground that they're used to in League One because they're playing against players that can do the same. They got run around. Soon as Robinson goes, the whole game plan went out the window. I think if we go in at 11 on V11 and he changes Kyogo for DYKES, it's a different game because you can then put the press on. You can be a bit more assertive in the way you press because you've got the energy. You can't do that with DYKES. So, as I say, for me, DYKES is the last 15 minutes of every game. He should be there. That's it, and should be no more than that. And because of that, we're then lacking who else should play up front to give Kyogo the rotation, because if he's not scoring goals, I can see why Davies is dropping him down. I think if he got the go again, he might change it. But this is Davies learning the job again. He's got no second chances. We can take it apart and look at this and that, but I think it's harsh to say Davies set up to not go and win the game. He's setting up with his best system at heart, but I do think it points back to we all thought the window was better than it was. There's still some gaps in this team.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
we are to challenge, if we're just going to be consolidating and putting up a good fight, we're doing all right. Even though we are 16th, look where Southampton are. Spent a lot more than us, and they're a much better team than us, and they're still below us because they're still getting going. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So I do think we've still got time. What would be good to look at this game, compare that to the last 10 games, and see how the dynamics of the team slightly tweak and change, and when the players get better as well. Smoky and Pake, I think, are the biggest cogs in this system. If they start doing well, the whole team elevate. And if both of them can find a way to improve their game 10-15%, we are going to see better. And that might be Tommy Doyle. That might be the answer. To break them to is Doyle. And I do think he's got a spot to play. So he's a squad game as well. We've got to give Davies his time to find it on the training pitch. So I think, yeah, it's hard. I can't wait for another game. I think Davis is probably the same. Get them back out there. Get them working on the new stuff that obviously he's talking about, because you allow blips, and I think the Carve game with the red card could be put down to a blip in the big frame of things.
Yeah, it was a blip, and that's why we'll simply move over it and talk on to Sheffield Wednesday. So, yeah, there's not more you can say about it. We lost 3-0. Okay, cheers, Lampard. Thanks for the battering. We move on. We went on home, though.
All Blues, it'd have been 5.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. All Blues, it's 5. Grand Cat, it's 8, isn't it? Like, it's your medicine and you walk on. Like, it's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. But we do go back to home. We still have that home record going into this game against Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday is a weird one because obviously they've got their struggles with their ownership. We were in the same kind of boat, not as bad as what Shansiri is doing at the moment to the club of Sheffield Wednesday, but we've been there, so we know what their struggles are, etc. And what they're fighting for in terms of players and the contracts, the wages, all of that debacle. But they're still showing a team that can fight, and that was very similar to kind of what Derby did. Although I hate to say it without Tom Otson being here, who loves Derby, a few seasons ago, where they were absolutely struggling as well. They still had the fight within the players to really kind of go out and put a proof to point. So the realistic Blues mind of not forgetting the modern era of our football at the moment. Historically, against the bottom tier sides, we do absolutely shite. So, going into this one, I really was not expecting much. But it was, I tell you what, a rollercoaster of a match. 2-2 it finished. Goals from Jay Stansfield. How crucial was it to get him back? We'll talk about that. And obviously, Damari Gray as well. The stoppage time point. You always thought the goal was going to come to. Again, we'll kind of go on about that. But some defensive lapses from Cashin, Josh. Does that show something that from that type of player, although that we do believe the hype of him, and I'm sure he is a player and a half, and at Brighton as well, they really value him. Not value him to get into the first team, but value him as a prospect of a player. Was it just one of them where it was just not his game?
Yeah, it just proves that certain defenders don't work in certain systems, and he's one of them. He doesn't suit our system. It reminds me a bit like Maguire at United. Maguire at Leicester works because he sees the game in front of himself. At United, he's got to run back on himself. Cashin does that at Blues. He's got to run 20 yards more than he wants to, and he can't do that. He turns slowly. He doesn't turn elegantly, which is what we need at times. To be fair, our system requires more pace at the back, to be honest, for it to work in its best form. And I think that goal kind of proved it, really. And they found a weak point in our play, and more credit to them. And they remind me of Blues of old. Blues teams have been more like Sheffield Wednesday than we've been like ourselves now. This is a new age of Blues where we do feel that we've got some right. I've seen teams like that, and they do have that mentality together a bit more. And when you've got a player like Barry Bannon, he's still a good player. And you've given him time and space, he will dictate. So it was on. Now you can see it after the game. I think you might see that as, yeah, it was good to keep the home record going. And it was a point well got. And I think people read into the Davy celebration a bit too much. I think that was more a case of, if they'd lost that game, he's got to absolutely bollock them lads. That he doesn't really want to bollock them. And it saves him having to bollock them. This is a job. He actually has that kind of, sometimes I don't want to be the bad guy. I can see the effort, and we're not getting the results yet, but we will, kind of thing. We've saw in a documentary the way he is with them. I just feel like that was more a case of, I don't need to be the bad guy. We can just use this as a positivity to try and push on to the next games coming. So you can't knock Damari Gray though. What a goal! Like,
I know. To talk about stepping out at that moment. But you mentioned your favourite website there, Twitter. They absolutely went in about Davis running down the sideline, and it's almost like that with scoring a goal on foot champs, and you got your manager in the 90th minute running down the sideline. Similar thing, really. For a 2-2 game against Sheffield Wednesday, I can understand where some fans are coming from. But I suppose for him, it's a bit of a kind of, not an FU back to the fans, but almost like a stress relief, because I bet he probably would have been under massive pressures. And maybe the rumours of, maybe there were rumours of him maybe having talked to Wagner about the season at the start. But Wagner was we will go on to this as well, in terms of his pre-match with Sky Sports into the Wrexham game about Davis, and we'll talk about that future. But pre that game, you could probably understand it where it's a bit of, he was under pressure in terms of, because Wagner knows he wants to go to the Premier League. He wants to ideally do it this season, but he wants to do it as quick as he can. So you can understand the pressure that he would have had to get that 2-2. Okay, it was almost a loss. We didn't want a loss after what happened with Coventry, and a bad loss against Coventry. So it's realism, isn't it? It's a bit more of realism, and it's showing character as well. So I kind of liked about that. What do you think as well, George, to your gaffer running down the sidelines for a 2-2?
I can kind of understand both sides. Obviously, footballs are very driven. It's very tribal. You get really close to the club that you're managing, I guess. And if that last-minute equaliser made him celebrate like that, then I've got no problem with it. But I just think a last-minute equaliser against a team that are second bottom at home, I just think it's a bit over the top. Some people might disagree with me. I don't care. But I also noticed, and I don't know whether I'm reading too much into this, but not one Blues player turned around and acknowledged he was there.
Really?
When he ran down the touchline. I saw the video. Not one person turns around and celebrates him. He goes down and hugs Damari Gray. Clara pats him on the back or something, but he runs and hugs Gray, and Gray doesn't even turn around and even acknowledge that he's there. I'm probably reading too much into that, but I mean, he's obviously under massive pressure, and I think he knows that.
Yeah,
I think regardless of games and things, I just think he is under massive pressure. But that's just every game. That's just game to game. Because I think these owners, regardless of, I think they're so driven. And we've seen the documentary, they want to win, regardless of who they're playing against. And I just think, there's a certain level of expectation for him. But Davis will get there, I'm sure of it. I agree with what Josh has said. Like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's just about whether they're patient enough to, give him that time. And I think they should do, really, like, unless things get catastrophically bad. But I can't see them getting to that point. I think there's enough from what I've seen. I think even in the Sheffield Wednesday game in the second half, I get it was only a draw, but the resilience to come back from behind. And once again, the goals, we just gave them the 2 goals, which is concentration, like errors. It wasn't like they played through us and it was good, But yeah.
That's exactly what my dad said, to be fair. We gave them goals through lack of concentration, and I was very adamant at the time, was thinking, oh God, Davis, what you doing, you set up. But he was like, no, what you're talking about, legit, that's not his fault. That is the players making a mistake, which has happened before. It happened in League One, happened to the previous managers that said they've made mistakes on a continuous basis. So it is one of them that happens. And unfortunately, in a game of 90 minutes, at the level of the Championship, you always need to be on your A game every time, and you can't afford to drop off the A game. Sometimes you do, and that's exactly what happened with Sheffield Wednesday. But you said about kind of coming back with that character as well, that Damari Gray second goal to kind of that salvage that point was brilliant. But I have to mention, there is one person that is missing from that back line. And you do mention him, we do need pace at the back line. And Phil Neumann is something that hasn't really been integrated back into the squad. Obviously, we bought him in the summer. What do you think's happened there, Josh? Is it one of them where we don't really know? We've just got to take it as what it is. Davis knows his best 11, or is experimented the back line? Because you think Clara is almost your stone rock. He's going to play nearly every game, bar hopefully touchwood no injury. But you thought Neumann when we was coming in, he's that pace that Clara needs to almost get back, and he started off the season very well. So where do you think that's happened? Obviously, we brought in Robertson in the window. Again, that's experience to come added in. I love that. But don't underestimate this lad who has played Bundesliga 2 experience.
Yeah, there's been whispers, rumours. Again, Davis he's trying different options to fix an ever-changing problem. I do think it's time to bring him back in, either at right back or at centre-half, either side, left centre-half or right centre-half. I think it needs to go back to some sort of 90s thinking a little bit to it, and just your two best lads need to play together, and they both need to feel out which side they're just going to perform the best as a unit.
Yeah.
Gone are the days where I think you can be, that has to be there, that has to be there. Try and amalgamate them as a pair. Scott Dan and Roger Johnson were my two favourite Blues pairings, and then we've got nothing close to that. And they were a Rolls Royce. They were better together than they were apart. They both should have played for England as a pair because they were unstoppable. They were a unit. They dovetailed perfectly. They both knew each other where they were, telepathically at times. That's what we need to get to. Stylistically, they look perfect. There might be a personality, dynamic, whatever. That's down to Davis. You've got to hope in this time that we've got now, with Clara, obviously with internationals, might not help as much, but you just got to hope that at some point we feel like we're vindicated in a sense he's seen, because it does feel like we lack that pace at the back. And also you brought him in and he's massive, so get him playing at some point, because we do lack a bit of height, and by doing that you might not then play Dykes, you might play Kyogo more. We then have a better chance moving forward. And if you look at his YouTube reels, Neumann can ping one as well, so it's better than cashing. We have depth, but unfortunately I think I was guilty of it as well. The name makes you think that the depth is probably better than it is, and at the moment the little data sample that we've got, it's not. But these things can change. Who knows? We could be talking in 6 months' time and saying that Cashin is the perfect left centre half. It all takes time, doesn't it? He's been bought for 8 million, so he's not suddenly a bad player overnight, is he?
No, of course. And you kind of mentioned there of our favourite thing if we watch YouTube show reels and get excited as Blues fans.
I've done it for so many years.
When players come in, it's just Josh watching Fujimoto compilations going, this man is the one. He is going to be the one.
I'll go further. I'll give you a name. Quincy Owusu Abayu. I'm telling you now, I remember sending his YouTube wonder kid from Arsenal. He come to Blues. I think it was Blues for like 6 months, maybe 8, on a loan. Unbelievable pace. He played one cracking game against Plymouth and then didn't do anything else again.
Kerim Fry as well was another one. I remember getting hyped about him with the Czech Kita.
Yeah. God. Writing him. I love the skill he had, quality.
But we're data driven now, guys. It gets better. We're data driven.
It's another way to geek out. It's another way to geek out. I love it. Bring it on. I love all that. I love all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I do.
It takes time, doesn't it? Like you said, it takes time.
It does. It's a recipe. You've got to throw bits in and let things marinate. And don't get me wrong, certain things need to be broken up now and again. Pake and I, what are dominant, can't be there forever. And I love watching them when they're on sync. It's my favourite pairing we've had for ages in that midfield. I can't remember the last time we've had someone that complements together so nicely. But we have to find ways of making things better when we're not winning games. And in the last season, that wasn't very often. And when it was almost like we were doing it because players are going to get bored. We need to give them game time, not because we're not winning games. But we've just moved the parameters of what we know. Do you know what I mean? You just got to let him work. Like, gone are the days where we're like watching people like Brian Howard, who's on his like 15th club, and it's like it's a meal ticket. There's a direction here, so let's just try and let it build and bubble away. Because if you throw Davis out, it all stops and it starts again, and it's like that's not necessarily going to inject us into the top 6 or the top 2.
And I think it's not as bad as people expect. People say as well.
No,
Let's be honest. I know we're 16th in the table. We'll go on to that, but it really isn't that bad when you look at our results in the last 9. George, where do you stand at Phil Neumann? Obviously, last game was Stoke, so
yeah.
I mean, he's missed quite a few games since then. So, what do you reckon's happened there? Is it maybe a lack of kind of not a lack of identity, but maybe not matching up with Davis? Is it his training? The annoying thing as Blues fans is we don't know, and that's the fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be better to know if it came out in a podcast or one of the Blues sources or whatever just came in. This man is not right for our identity. Okay, why'd you buy him? Would be the questions we then ask. But or he's just not up to the levels, because then you're like, okay, 32-year-old Robinson, who when we played against Sheffield United earlier on, didn't look that great. Bearing in mind he's came in, he's not done too bad apart from the red card against Coventry. So, but he's pace and a young defender with pace. It's going to take time. I don't know what's happened there.
I think what was so beneficial for us last season, this will make sense, was the left foot, right foot balance with Clara and Ben Davies. And I think obviously we've brought in Newman over for the summer, gone to 2 right-footed as a pair. Then we lost against Leicester and lost against Stoke. And I think Davies probably just had a little think about what we could have done differently and what might have needed to just give us that little bit more balance in defence. And I think his first go-to option was to go back to a right foot, left foot balance. And I think Jack Robinson offers us that. I think against Swansea, he was very solid, tough. Cov was a bit unfortunate. But I think that was his thinking. I think it was to go back to a left foot, right foot balance, because maybe I think it was Clara that was on the left-hand side. Clara didn't look as comfortable. And I noticed that against Leicester and at Stoke. I noticed that as well. And it's about finding the right balance, because it made such a difference for us last year, having Davis and Clara play as a pair, the right foot and left foot. So, yeah, I think that's where I stand on him. But I do feel bad for him, because we've brought him in over the summer, and it's almost like from now, a neutral perspective, the signing almost makes no sense. Everyone's like, well, where's this Newman gone? It's it's kind of hard to explain, because he wasn't a scapegoat for the 2 defeats. I don't think.
No.
So I think it was just a bit of a tactical one, and I think unfortunately for Newman, we didn't play against Swansea, and then we won. So he kind of kept that same going into the Cov game. But Talk's been playing at right back. Obviously, Bright's not had the best of starts, but I think Bright is more of a natural right back and would offer us more there than Newman would. So I think you've either got either he's not going to play and he's going to be Clara's backup, or you play both of them as a pair, Clara and Newman, and just put up with it and say, right, these are the pair. Just work it out between yourselves.
Yeah, no, I think there when it came in as well, it's like you mentioned Neumann with that right balance with the centre backs, and it's like, okay, if you knew Clara was going to be your one, that's going to be your right-footed one, is your strong one, go find the equivalent left foot. And they've obviously football's very different. You can have 2 right-footed centre backs and be absolutely boss, or you can have a right and a left. So who knows? It could be one of them. But for all he's saying is that we do this podcast, it goes out and he starts the next game and does boss. So you just don't really know. But let's talk about the positives. Blues in that last game as well. The momentum swings and who stood out as well. I mean, you have to mention Stansfield and Gray, don't you, George?
Oh yeah. I think Jay's been a workhorse for this team for 3 years now. Well, not 3 years, since he came here. And there's a lot of talk about him with the penalties and people calling him Pensfield, but he offers us so much. He offers so much more to me than just scoring goals. Anyway, I think his overall play, his press, his ability to run, the fact he's not afraid to get into a tackle and have a fight with someone on the pitch, that I think means a lot to. I think a manager as well, not just the fans. I think the manager really likes him. But yeah, it's always good to see him score. And it was a really good goal as well against Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. And Josh, I'll let you talk about him. Damari Gray. I think loads of Blues fans were optimistic about him. Didn't know that he was going to be kind of the same as what he used to be years ago. But there's a player there. There is absolutely still a player there. And I mean, let's talk about that kind of last minute limbs. We've had some loads of last minute limbs at the Tilton, but that was pretty good.
No, I'm buzzing for him. Like it's really good to see him back at the Blues. I was gutted when he left. I genuinely was. He was the shining star in an otherwise torrid, dark presence looming over the club, which obviously materialised as it did. He was one of the last good things we had for a long time, and then after him was Jude and the Bellinghams coming in. So he was the final crown jewel to leave, and it was like him going was kind of like the chapter closed, that Blues are in the bigger space and people care, and Sullivan and Brady are off, and it's all changed. And seeing him now, and he's not that kid anymore, because there was times where Demar would be like, "Come on, like he's learning, give him time," and now he's the one leading, and he's doing the right thing, and he's grafting. And the biggest thing I can say since he's come back is his understanding of the role on both sides is so much better than I ever thought it would be. His defensive work as a winger is class.
Yeah.
He put his body in the way in probably 5 times I could think of off the top of my head, of him just diving in the way, back against it. That is what a Blues nose does. It's not the talk, it's not that. And there have been Blue nose to play for Blues, probably absolutely a Blue nose. We know that, we can see there's little bits the way you act on the pitch. You know, you can be adopted Blue noses. One of my favourite ones was Martin O'Connor, Skip. He would do things on the pitch that a fan would do if they had half a chance. You know, they'll throw the body the way the John Terry-esque head on the ball. That's what Blues fans have always been obsessed about. You know, wanting to see a player do what you would do if you had half their talent. And that's it. It's as simple as that. My old man used to say to me, there's a thing where Blues fans will cheer as much for a corner or a foul or a good tackle as they will for a goal. We did it in the press box, or the fancy seat, sorry, when Pike went straight through O'Brien, I think it was, Swans. Was it O'Brien? I can't remember.
Ronald.
Second mid.
Ronald.
That's it. He went off 15, 20 seconds later. He was sucked off. Pike went through him, and the whole row just went up. It's just a Blues thing. And we all cheered. It's just, that's what it's all about. So, and Damari's showing elements of that, and I never expected it after coming back. You have to worry about he's been in Saudi. Does he really want it? Has he got the desire? Absolutely. And he's leading by example, and he's brilliant. And when you've got more players like that, it's only going to help the squad. And he's going to be so crucial as the games go on. I said it at the start of the season, 15 goal involvements for him, I reckon. That's my bet. And I think he's coming in easy with that. I think I'm not going to put a time frame. He's got the whole season.
Yeah.
I think he's doing well. And touching on the Jay Stansfield point as well, I've always wished for Blues to sign players that feel like Blues are the best they're going to get, because you get the best out of them. And I absolutely feel like Jay embodies that. The only player that I feel like in my childhood or my adolescence that had that was DJ Campbell. He got to notoriety by scoring in the FA Cup, and then we bought him from, ironically, Brentford. And Brentford were really low level then. And because he got the notoriety for scoring, I can't remember who it was against. He knocked our friend team out with his goal. And he had a goal tough, and he looked a little bit rough and ready. But when he played for Blues, he was like Stano. He would never leave you alone. He's them lads that like power league on you, and they're hitting you, and they're constantly barking at you. And that's what he did, and he was quality. And he should have stayed longer at Blues. He went to Blackpool, but he played with this kind of, every single ball means my wages and more, and for my family in the stands. And there's lads that would die to be here today. This is it. This is the best I'm going to get. Ian Wright's mentality of when he come into the game, I am the best. This is the best it's going to be, so I'm giving it my body. That's what Blues fans want. And when you've got your wingers doing that, your centre forwards doing that, and you can get a couple more in there, we have got elements of this team that 18 months ago, when we were last in the Championship, we didn't have anybody like that. Yes, obviously Jay was here, but he was a young lad. When you've got Blue Noses who have got kids in the youth system, and they've got stuff already on the wall and that, and it's not they're leading by example. It's like Gardner. When Gardner come back, he kind of talked more than he showed. He didn't really show us the Gardner that left beforehand, and it kind of went a little bit sour. Gray's not doing that. He's leading with goals now. So yeah, it's really fun to watch, and it does make me. I love watching a Blues player do well for Blues and not go somewhere else. We sold so many good players. Redmond at the same time was great. Matthew Upson went way too cheap for me. Scott Dano and Roger Johnson got sold off way too cheap when we got relegated. So yeah, it's nice, and I think we've just got to give ourselves time, and
this is the refreshing new era, isn't it, that we're going to have where players are going to want to come to us. So
it is.
We've got to lapse it up and kind of get on. Before we move on to Wrexham really quickly, George, just to back on that Sheffield Wednesday limbs, shall we say, of that Damari Gray winner. To play devil's advocate, it was 2-2. It was Sheffield Wednesday. We still find ourselves near the bottom of the table. Not bottom of the table, do you know what I mean? So don't get too carried away.
No, absolutely not. No. But I think one thing that I don't really know, but the last minute equaliser, I think I would have expected someone like Gray in that situation. I get it's his first goal for us back. You'd pick the ball up out the net and you'd run to the centre circle and you'd put it back and you'd say, go on, let's go and get a third. I think DYKES was the only one that was trying to get him to do that. And that's not me like nitpicking. I think he's been great for us, Gray. But from someone as senior as him, I think in the last, to get that, and there's still like a minute left, a lot can happen in a minute in the game of football. So I'm not saying that if we'd have put the ball back in the centre circle, we'd have won.
Yeah.
But just one more chance, maybe we could have done something. But it's one of them. It's his last minute equaliser. It's his boyhood club. I can see why he's done it.
And also, I think Blues fans, there's historical Blues fans thinking, God, it's only 2-2, etc. But the modern day is, oh my God, that's social media kits. That is going to bring money into the club. So nowadays, there is so much cameras on Blues, reaction on Blues, talk on Blues, whether they're defeat, win, loss, etc. It's always talking about us. I don't mind it for that aspect because PR-wise and kind of bringing in sponsorships and always talking about us, etc. That is kind of what's going to get people talking. And what did get people talking is moving on to the so-called Hollywood Derby, which is a bit of a cringe fest derby, shall we say. Wrexham away. Wrexham obviously struck first through George Dobson. I have to say we started pretty poor in that first half. And then obviously second half, then Patrick Roberts equalised just seconds, obviously, after the second half did start. The draw, though, continues basically for Wrexham. It was their long wait for a home win in the Championship, so they're still not getting that. So they're kind of still struggling. And Josh has talked about it with Southampton. This table that we see at the moment is likely going to massively change towards maybe March, April time. It just teams still trying to integrate their squads for the summer, still trying to play their working ways. And I think Blues is probably one of them. But do Blues consider that actually a good away point in terms of what they played, or do we consider that actually a missed opportunity? Josh?
I think it's one of them. The hype and the pomp isn't as big as it was last season, so I think that it's a game we want to win, but if we don't lose in the landscape of the game, then that's also good. I think Wagner's comments before the game and during are good. The whole thing is just good. That's it.
Let's actually talk about that. Sorry to interrupt. You did mention that about Wagner, and that was really crucial and important because Sky obviously did that interview with Wagner beforehand, and Wagner is very much like that, and that's what I like about him as an owner because loads of Championship fans will be thinking, why is he doing this? Oh, he doesn't know anything about football. Oh, it's the American way. But I like the fact that he's in the away end, like a fan, and also he's pre-match with the media talking about the club, and he came out with authority for Chris Davis, and I feel like that is something where it was quite refreshing to hear because it was just like it puts kind of the noise down below, because I know whether we lost the last 3 games or 4 games, etc., there would have been noise, whether we drew or lost, etc., because that is now the pressure that Wagner has set for this club, and it was kind of took the fans on it. We've got money. We're going to splash it. We're going to bring the players in. We're going to get a attacking style of football. This is our manager. He's going to take us up. And actually, that was almost a good sense of, all right, calm down. He's our man. give him time. George, what do you think about that? Do you like the way that Wagner comes out of the media and really defends us?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he's done so much for the club, Wagner, that I really don't care what he does. Like, he's helped us so much. I don't care what he does. I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto the half-time talk in a minute, but I think for him pre-game to go out on Sky and make those comments, I think puts everyone at ease. Well, it put me at ease. And I'm sure it also puts the gaffer at ease as well, because I think he'd have obviously felt the pressure against Sheffield Wednesday. He'd have felt the pressure against Cov. And I think it was good for him to know that the owners still back him despite, whether we deserve to win the games or not. Yeah, I completely agree with it. I think I think it puts everyone at ease. It shuts that noise out. And I think it showed, to be fair, because the second half performance for us was like watching us at the start of the season against Ipswich and against Sheffield United. I think we were on the front foot, we were aggressive, we were pressing, and it looked like a Birmingham City team. I mean, there were glimpses of it in the games previously, but there wasn't enough of it, I don't think. And I think the second half against Wrexham, for the full 45 minutes, we were pressing on the front foot. And yeah.
Josh, what do you make about that? Davis kind of getting a lot of praise from Wagner and defending pretty hard. Was that good to hear as a Blues fan?
Yeah, because when you see it in isolation, like 8 weeks ago, Davis is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah,
like the whole reason why we're here and the way we play in certain ways is his embodiment and his team. The whole package is him. If we go and get rid of him now, we probably lose 2 to 3 transfers in the next summer window because you've got to pay him off and his whole team. Can this team deal with that if we don't go up? No, we can't. So it's going in the right direction, and the Wrexham game should be seen as a point gained, not 2 lost.
And he's a motivated man as well. I know you've said about it loads of times on this podcast, Josh, that you'll go to war with this man for Tom Wagner because he is that type where you could be in a room of 100 with him and he'd talk you into jumping on that ship and over you go to war for him. George, you mentioned about halftime. What do you think about that? Because obviously social media, loads of fans will exaggerate that as it's American, this is a load of rubbish, it's cringe. But actually, is it more of like kind of is showing his passion for the club as well as being an owner?
I think it's both. I was at the ground actually, so I didn't see it when it first got released onto
Twitter. Were you getting your pint, were you, at half time?
Wow, the concourse at fucking Wrexham was that shit. That like I couldn't get a pint or food. But I think it's a bit of both. I think it is, a lot of people are going to jump on social media about it, but let them. Like, I don't like let them. Yeah, like let them. That doesn't really affect me. But like I said, like he's done so much for the club, and since he's come in, that I don't really care what he does. I don't care if it's a bit cringe, and it shows that his heart's in the right place as well. Because I'd rather him be sat there in the way and freezing his bollocks off than us not knowing who the owner is in another country.
Good point.
So.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. But his hat, the bobble hat he had on, was absolutely amazing. That was beautiful. And they started selling them now, aren't they, in the club shop?
Yeah. I thought you were going to go out and get it then. I thought you were going to right, and this is all that. Patrick Roberts, Josh, again, he is a player that we're going to really relish of his time here. And maybe, because we've got the financial power, we could maybe come back in the summer and really go for a permanent position for him. And if he really kicks on, and I feel like he's starting to now. Patrick Roberts, obviously the assist against Swansea and obviously the goal against Wrexham as well. Josh is really that pivotal winger that we really cried out for.
He really is, and he complements Damari the other side as well. I think them two are slowly becoming the prime two to work with, and there's going to be times where he's going to go missing, and I think that all hinges on Ethan Laird, which we've obviously unfortunately lost for two months now. That link-up play between Roberts and Laird against Swansea, that last 15 minutes, there was something there. There really was. It was people in the Kop were starting to get, this could be something, and they were just, when it was flowing, it was really good, linking in with Pike as well, little triangles. I do like it. I'm a fan of his, and he's always been a player that if he could add goals to his game, he'd make that jump. So he's 28. It's either now or it's never. And it reminds me of a kind of a little bit like Dave McGoldrick a little bit. Could do it, might not. It's depending if he's balled right. And I think when he's on it, you can't get near him. He's low centre of gravity, the way he moves, linking that with someone like Jay's running, Kyogo's. We have the sum of parts better than we've had for a while. It's a symphony. It's not in tune. When it's tuned, it's going to bellow. And Lampard's done it at Coventry. I think the blueprint are similar. When it clicks, the whole system gets you the goals. It's not necessarily the individual parts. And then you have certain key elements that need to fire a lot. And I think in ours, Roberts is one of them. And the goal, he took it with complete ease. And look at Jay's goal against Sheffield Wednesday. He took it with complete ease. If we can start giving them these chances, but they don't really have to think about it, that might be the way we work. That all comes from what we always scream about. Play it faster. Don't give them time to think. Wrap it into each other. Gerrard pass everything. And you might get what we're doing because when they don't think about it, they do better. And this whole season could have been different if that first game of the season, Kyogo's absolute fair chip goes in. Does that change the whole thing and we're so much higher? And when he kicks into life, that Celtic Kyogo, he's still in there and that's going to be exciting. So I still think that there's time for that.
You put another classic Josh saying in there with about the symphony. The symphony's almost playing, guys. Not quite all in tune, but almost playing. Very similar to All Fart No Poo. Kyogo's nearly pooing because, my God, he created well, he did everything he could.
That's the system, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we don't get the goals, it's all fart no poo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. It's like, what are you doing? You just do the little bit extra. It's that next pass, the next one. It's always that, but that's what Pep went through. Pep went through 10 games of that last season. It's when it doesn't work and that little bit's off. That's what Davis is kind of in now, but he did it last season. Shrewsbury was the turning point. Was Coventry the turning point? We don't know if the turning point has even come yet, but it's the sum of the parts we have now are better than we've had before. So they know the system. They've just got to try and figure out a new tune to it in a different environment, which is the Championship.
Going to your point, though, Kyogo worked proper hard against Wrexham. He was very unlucky, obviously, George, to have that goal ruled out. Yeah. It was offside. I mean, it's kind of so annoying as a Blues fan. You're blatantly offside. It's so offside. But he's working hard. The finish was unbelievable. The finish was something that looked like a man that was in form that scored 10 goals this season, let alone hardly getting one. But I mean, he is something that, again, Kyogo, he just works so hard off the ball and on the ball as well, drawing out those defenders, then for the pocket, for Jay to then run in and stuff. Surely it's a moment of time where Kyogo finally gets the goals and the goals then will start coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jack, you're right in what you say. I think his movement off the ball is the best I have ever seen from a Blues striker ever. I was a bit too young to remember Mikel Fossell, but my dad tells me he was quite similar to that. Sorry, Josh.
I love it. But sorry, to put in, there was the best hat trick I've ever seen him score. I was at the game. It was match the day. It's so annoying. I missed out on tickets for that game against Spurs. Header, left foot, right foot. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
I think with Kyogo, I think there's a player in there that scores loads of goals, and whether that if that Ipswich goal goes in, which by the way he did unbelievable just to get it to hit the post, let alone it to go in the net.
Yeah.
So I think it'll come, and it was a shame against Wrexham because from my angle, obviously, because you're on the other side of the ground. I think
it would have been a great reaction.
It looked offside from where I was,
right.
to be fair, but that finish was like, that's him when he doesn't have to think, and it was just instinctive. And I think he's been really unlucky. He's had a couple against Oxford that he should have scored. He scored against Sheffield United, but then he had that chance straight afterwards that was a one-on-one, and I think he missed.
He had so many chances against Sheffield United. I think that's where I actually have Sheffield United fans you know who you are if you're watching this. Message me to go in. This man is so overrated. He's finished because he just didn't take his chance. He was blasting them into the tilt and left, right, or centre.
Bookmark them.
Yeah, bookmark them. There you go. He's coming for you, Theo. Yeah. There you go. There's your mention.
I only started the season top goal scorer, and I'm still confident. 16-1, I had him at. I'm still confident. Until January, I'm still confident.
There you go. Bookmark it. But yeah, no, to kind of wrap that up, I think you're right, George. It's like it's one of them. There is a player there. He had one kind of not great season, but he's still we're forgetting what he did at Celtic, which was just unbelievable for that club, and what he did, and his finishes and his work rate and everything like that, and his pace. And as my dad keeps going, he's not getting the service. I really
do agree with that. I do think that's true. I think so. I mean, he's not the kind of, attacker that we're going to just put the ball out of our feet and lump it up to him. He's not even going to bother competing against 6'4", defenders. And I also think people have got so spoiled. Like the number 9s we've had over the years, we had Scott Hogan. Like this guy is light years ahead of people like that. So I think he'll come good for us. It's a case of when, not if. Because he obviously is.
And then the party poppers we can shoot on this podcast when the goals start to come in. And then he's pooing, Josh. He's pooing. Anyway, let's wrap up then, obviously. So we've had a mixed spell, really. We've had, obviously, one win, one massive, pretty much heavy loss, but 2 draws. So not the most worrying, because it could have been 4 losses and then we would have been all talking. But we did get that one win and we got 2 draws. But we do find ourselves at the table 16th, which I think when you look at it at the start of the season, if you would have told us 9 games in, we were 16th, maybe some alarm bells would have sounded. But Wagner comes in. He told us pre-Wrexham, no matter what happened with that result, he's our man to keep. So unless there is something absolutely horrendous after this podcast goes out, then we've just got to build on this project, and it's still adapting the jigsaw puzzles, etc. The Coventry loss potentially did lose maybe a bit of confidence, but then we did come back and obviously battle against Sheffield Wednesday and show that kind of fighting spirit. Defending and pressure were pretty good at, transition play, squad depth, all of that different things. However, I have to finish on this final point. Chris Davis and substitutions. I put a tweet out, which I think probably was maybe more of a natural anger reaction, saying I've not seen these substitutions with Chris Davis this bad since I took Karanka, where he would come in and Karanka would just put on one position for another position. But he has been very questionable, Davis, with his recent substitutions, and some fans have been pretty vocal about it on social media about it, and especially around Tommy Doyle, who is such an asset to the club. George, where do you think this balance comes in, where you've got to try put in Paik, Iwata and Doyle into a midfield, because one has to unfortunately find themselves on the bench? And what do you make of the substitutions of Davis over the last 2 games?
I think the one that really stood out to me was the putting Iwata at right back against Sheffield Wednesday, and then to start him at right back against Wrexham. I think I'd rather have Neumann play at right back instead of Iwata, and then put Iwata in the midfield. But in terms of Tommy Doyle, I think you have got to start him, but it's just finding the right position, because who do you drop out? In my opinion, I think Iwata is happy to sit in front of the back 4, and then that could allow Doyle to, get forward if you're going to drop Paik. But that would be harsh on Paik, I think. But at the same time, Doyle isn't a 10. So you can't play all 3 of them together unless you change system. So I think to basically mirror what Josh has said the whole podcast, it's about little pieces and puzzles and figuring things out. I think it'll come. I think Doyle needs a run of games, though, to really see if he can start, to see if he's got the know-it-all. Because I think it's hard to judge him on one start and coming off the bench in a few games. Because we've been chasing the game in a few times. He's come on. But I mean, I wasn't at Wednesday at home. I was working, but I heard he had a good game up until he got subbed off.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there's a player there, and you've got to just try to combine it. And who wants that Chris Davis job? Not me, which is why I'm sat here as a fan watching our club. And management is sometimes you go to bed and you're sleeping thinking, God, have I done the right decision that game? Or it probably is constantly playing there. So I give some shadow of a doubt to him. But his substitutions are very bizarre. I'll have to give that. But we'll back him. And he's still learning, developing as a manager as well. And that's the main key thing to kind of really to move on from. But looking ahead, our fixtures get a little bit more kind of somewhat easier, shall we say? Although easy is a term not that we want to really use, but when you look at the previous games that we've had in the 9, next come Hull City, Preston, Bristol, and Portsmouth, which is a bit of a mixed bag of games, but potentially chance to get 3 points on the board as well, Josh.
Fingers crossed. I think you look at them teams, you've got more chance of them potentially sitting off you a little bit, or when they attack you with players that we could probably match or maybe on paper better than. So I think it's just a different. Every game's going to be hard in this league. It's simple as that. And until we can start dominating games, we've got to treat everything as a borderline cup final, because what other level do you play at, really? You've got to just take everything as it comes. The Preston game will be a pain. I can't remember the last time we've won there, so that's going to be one of them hoodoos I'd love to see us knock off our list. But the whole game, I'd like to see a good, solid performance. I think touching on how to get the best out of Doyle. I think Doyle's like Kyogo. I think they need a good run. If you go back to the Monk years with Che, before Che scored all his goals, it felt like that. Monk was saying to him, "You're going to play 10 games straight, regardless if you score or not." It felt like Duke and Che were the answer, regardless of what they're going to score or not. Let's run go with it. We're going to make it work, and then Che was quality. So I feel like we don't keep with Kyogo and Doyle. You never know if they can fit in the team. So they're going to have to play in the team for more than just 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I think the only way that works is we just change the system in the midfield. Single pivot, I watch us holding Pake and Doyle as 2-8s, and you make it work that way around. Does that put more pressure on the running campaign? Is Pake and I don't know, but I'd like to see, not just for one game, 20 minutes, I'd like to see it run through, but that only works if you're doing it in training. So it's one of them. We have to go back to the same old thing of he's Davis's system. We're just having to watch him tweak around with it.
Yeah, it's combining the players, isn't it? Making sure they slot into the right pieces. It's that jigsaw that's ever building. It's not quite perfect, but it will come. George, where do you see us in the E-sets forward? But by the way, I have to say, I did say it was an easy run of games. I looked at the table and all 4 teams are above us at the moment. So it's not quite easy per se. But when you look at it in terms of on paper, in terms of the teams, they're not, apart from Preston, obviously, we're 4 for having a flying season. But historically, that was where my comment came in before looking at the table. But George, where do you see us the next 4?
I think the 2 home games, Hull and Portsmouth, I think we've got more chance of picking up 3 points in both of those games. That's just my opinion. Bristol away, we always tend to do really well as well. But I agree with Jack. I can't remember the last time we won at Preston. I think it'll be a mixed bag, like again, similar to the last couple of games, really. I think it'll be a mixed bag. Once again, just still trying to find the perfect team, because I don't quite think we've found that yet. So I think that's where I stand on the next 4 games. I think it'll be a mixed bag again, maybe 5 to 7 points out of the next 4 games.
How did you take that? I think you take that from the next 4. I agree. I think your home form, we've got to continue that. Whether it's a draw or a win, we got to get that. But also the results need to start coming up, especially going into the winter period, where the games come quick and fast, as we know in the Championship. But let's see. We'll see what happens on the next time. The next time of the podcast, we'll reflect on to see how Blues have done in the recent results. But for tonight's episode, that wraps up this weekend's episode of the EverythingB9 podcast. Mixed results then across the last stretch, highs and obviously the lows, but definitely lessons to take forward. Thanks to everyone tuning in. Thank you, George, for coming onto the podcast. It's very valued your opinion as well, and a brand new Blue Nose to come on to the EverythingB9. Thank you for joining us. And Josh, as ever, with your wisdom and your historical background of being a Blues fan, and the players that ring to mind for yourself as well. well. Thank you for coming on and talking about all of that. So thanks for everyone also for tuning in. Don't forget to send in your questions and predictions ahead of the next fixtures. And once again, if you do want to come onto the podcast, do let us know. We're happy to encourage more Blue Noses on and to give more of a vocal say as well. But as for always, as Blue Noses, keep right on.